We never discussed, John Shade and I, any of my personal misfortunes. Our close friendship was on that higher, exclusively intellectual level where one can rest from emotional troubles, not share them. My admiration for him was, for me, a sort of alpine cure. I experienced a grand sense of wonder whenever I looked at him, especially in the presence of other people, inferior people. This wonder was enhanced by my awareness of their not feeling what I felt, of their not seeing what I saw, of their taking shade for granted instead of drenching every nerve, so to speak, in the romance of his presence. Here he is, I would say to myself. That is his head, containing a brain of a different brand than that of the synthetic jellies preserved in the skulls around him. He is looking from the terrace of Professor C's house on that March evening at the distant lake. I am looking at him. I am witnessing a unique physiological phenomenon. John Shade perceiving and transforming the world, taking it in and taking it apart, recombining its elements in the very process of storing them up so as to produce at some unspecified date an organic miracle, a fusion of image and music, a line of verse. And I experienced the same thrill as when in my early boyhood I once watched across the tea table in my uncle's castle a conjurer who had just given a fantastic performance and was now quietly consuming a vanilla ice. I stared at his powdered cheeks, at the magical flower in his buttonhole, where it had passed through a succession of different colors and had now become fixed as a white carnation, and especially at his marvelous, fluid-looking fingers, which could, if he chose, make his spoon dissolve into a sunbeam by twiddling it, or turn his plate into a dove by tossing it up in the air. Shade's poem is indeed that sudden flourish of magic. My gray-haired friend, my beloved old conjurer, put a pack of index cards into his hat and shook out a poem. To this poem we now must turn. My foreword has been, I trust, not too skimpy. Other notes, arranged in a running commentary, will certainly satisfy the most voracious reader. Although those notes, in conformity with custom, come after the poem, the reader is advised to consult them first and then study the poem with their help, rereading them, of course, as he goes through its text, and perhaps, after having done with the poem, consulting them a third time so as to complete the picture. I find it wise in such cases as this to eliminate the bother of back and forth leafings by either cutting out and clipping together the pages with the text of the thing, or, even more simply, purchasing two copies of the same work, which can then be placed in adjacent positions on a comfortable table, not like the shaky little affair on which my typewriter is precariously enthroned now in this wretched motor lodge, with that carousel inside and outside my head, miles away from New Y. Let me state that without my notes, Shade's text simply has no human reality at all, since the human reality of such a poem as his, being too skittish and reticent for an autobiographical work, with the omission of many pithy lines carelessly rejected by him, has to depend entirely on the reality of its author and his surroundings, attachments, and so forth, a reality that only my notes can provide. To this statement, my dear poet would probably not have subscribed, but for better or worse, it is the commentator who has the last word. Charles Kinboat, October 19th, 1959, Cedarn, Utah.